Welcome to the Tarot Coven Cast. Real people, real talk, real magic. Hello there, lovely listeners, and welcome to the Tarot Coven Cast. I'm one of your hosts, Jasmine.
And I'm Jaconovia.
And we are back with another fantastic guest to interview. Here with us this time is Bobby Abate, a queer artist, filmmaker, activist, and esotericist from Brooklyn, New York. In 2012, he started working on a deck that would pay homage to all the beautiful misfits who live by their own rules, the Outsider Tarot. Welcome to the show, Bobby. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be part of this podcast. I've never been on a podcast before, so I'm very excited about it.
Oh, what?
That's so cool.
I feel really special.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm just happy that we could find time to make this chat work while the deck is still up on Kickstarter. So this is going to air in a couple of weeks, and I think there will still be a couple of weeks left on the campaign. I mean, at this point, you've already reached your initial funding. Congrats.
Thank you so
we should
much.
Probably phrase that. You're kicking ass on Kickstarter is what you're doing.
Yes.
I'm kicking Kickstarter ass.
That's right.
No. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited and to be here and in the middle of the campaign. It's really cool. And the end of the campaign is the next big push. So
yeah.
So I'm excited to be able to get this out there too and get more word out there before the campaign closes.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk more about the campaign specifically and how much longer it'll be up by the time this episode airs. We're going to talk about the Outsider Tarot, of course. But we're actually going to kick things off with some icebreaker questions. So First up, Bobby, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you found your way to tarot and maybe even some witchcraft?
Well, I mean, the very initial part of it is my Italian upbringing. My mother and my grandmother, I think of them as witches. We call in Italian stregas. And, they're very powerful, mystical women in the household. Everything in our house was always in groups of 3. There was lots of saint statues and lots of psychic powers being wielded around. And my grandmother in particular, was a kitchen witch, just stirring her pots and pans. And to this day, her birthday's actually tomorrow, so I'm giving her a shout out. She passed away in 2008, but she's like my saint. I pray to her a lot still. But in order to connect with her, I do her spells. I roll out the dough and I bake sauces, and I really try to connect to her. It really feels like spell casting. So in terms of magic, I still have my necklace that which is the Italian cornetto, a little horn, chili shape in gold, and the thing to ward off the evil eye. So we always have these Southern Italian charms that we wear. So we really believe in all of these, magic, very local forms of magic, Italian magic. So I grew up with that for sure.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's beautiful. And what was the name for witch again?
Strega. Strega. Strega.
That's beautiful.
Strega. Okay. It's also a delicious liquor that they sell. It's from Italy, and it's made with 40 different herbs. I was paid to plug it. It's a really good liquor. It's one of my favorites. I mean, just it's like a brandy, and it tastes like a spell, like a cauldron. It's so good.
Magic in a bottle.
Yeah. So that's called Strega. My introduction to the tarot was when I went to the dormitory as an art student in Massachusetts College of Art. And I walk in, I had orange hair. I was super into disco. I had big, huge lapels and polyester. My hair was crazy color. And my name was Rob back then. And I walk in, my roommate's name is Rob. And he walks around the corner and he looks exactly like Robert Smith from The Cure. Just sprayed up hair and just full on goth. And our dorm room was full of witchcraft and Ouija boards and tarot
Wow.
cards. And I was introduced to the tarot through the tarot of the cat people. I had a reading and I became obsessed with the tarot. I tried to make a tarot deck right then and there off the bat, and I failed miserably. It made no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, I was like, the little white book made no sense. So, I got through 4 or 5 cards and then I just like failed. I had to give up because, it just didn't really
It
add
wasn't the
up to me at that
time.
point. It wasn't the right time, no.
Yeah.
But I did acquire my first deck at that point, which was called the Fantastic Shoes Tarot, by this Italian tarot creator named Osvaldo Menegazzi. And it was just the Major Arcana, and each Arcana is just a beautiful, fabulous shoe
Wow.
in the shape of all the different, like, I don't know, like it's like an Italian shoe, like in
Hmm.
the shape of the world or the lovers, and it was beautiful, but also useless. It's like it was so stupid of me to buy that, but I blew all my money on it too.
It
So I also
sounds
didn't.
it sounds like so much fun though. It sounds like such
Yeah.
a interesting introduction to tarot. I mean, I know you said that there was the tarot of the cat people, but like this whole shoe thing, it just sounds so interesting. I'm gonna look it up for sure.
Oh yeah, the Fantastic Shoes Tarot. It's worth a lot of money now. I bought it. It was just like a very limited edition at that point. So it was really an incredible acquisition to have, like in the, as a tarot deck. It's the
Yeah.
beginning of my collection. Um, so it was definitely really fun to have that.
So from there, you just like have always been into tarot. That was it. It was like kind of love at first sight, and
Well, I was always definitely into like spiritual stuff,
yeah,
and
growing up with it for sure.
yeah, I did put the tarot aside because I found it to be really obtuse. Like I couldn't figure it out, and that little white book, when I read it, I it was almost like I was never meant to be an actor. Like I can't remember things that way. I'm a systematic thinker. I need to know the systems behind things in order to understand them. And there was really no book available at that point that I could find that would really
Mhm.
describe that system to me. Although I did discover a book that was written around, earlier, named 78 Degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack. I met Rachel Pollack as a filmmaker. I was going to do a film with her, an
Oh
experimental
wow.
film. And she happened at that time to be a teacher with my partner at Goddard College. So they were friends and we were introduced. And she showed me her tarot decks. I saw her version of the Rider Waite that she bought in the 70s, and her own deck called the Shining Tribe Tarot. And she told me about her book, The 78 Degrees of Wisdom. I went and bought it. And suddenly, like, that was the book I was looking for all
Yeah.
my life. And, or since that point, and like the system behind the tarot was really opened up to me. And I was able to start doing readings. I went out and I bought maybe 20 or 30 decks.
Oh, nice.
And I was just like buying decks and reading with all different types of decks. And then I just thought, oh, I could go back and, after doing a bunch of readings, hundreds and hundreds of hours of readings for a few years, I was like, I can go back to that project now. I can do it because I understand the tarot.
Yeah.
So I can make my own tarot deck now.
I really love that story, and I love asking that question because honestly everyone does have such a different answer, and it's so fascinating to know how people have found their way to tarot. And just what I've noticed a lot is that I think when I was first coming to tarot, I kept hearing people say like, "Oh, I was into it since I was a little kid and my mom read tarot and her mom read tarot." And I was like, "Damn, this really is inherited. Like, is there anybody that just like found it in adulthood?" And the more I meet people and talk with them, like they have found it later on. Yeah, like I would say more people that I know now have found it later on in life than, the other way around. But I love the fact that for you, it wasn't just this like initial, like, oh my God, I totally understand the cards. They make perfect sense to me. This is it. It's this intuitive dream. It's like, no, some people aren't going to make the connection that way. And that's okay too. Like the way that you came at it makes so much sense to me. So it's a cool story. Thanks for sharing it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I am an intuitive reader, but like, I can't be that intuitive. I know some people, Amanda Bell from Indie Deck Review is an intuitive reader,
Yeah.
and she can just read the cards. And I'm so impressed by that. But like, I have half and half, I have half a logical brain and half an intuitive
Yeah.
brain, and they really work in tandem. So like one is just not going to work without the other.
Yeah.
When I do a tarot reading, I need to kind of know the structure behind it. And I'm also a nerd. Like my logical brain is like, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
It's there for a reason. Why is that
Yes.
there? And I
Yes.
won't, I can't get beyond it. I can't get beyond it. Like unless if I don't know every single thing about the intentions behind the card, then my mind gets stuck.
Totally get that.
Well, I mean, that would just be like such a unique flavor of a tarot reader, and also even just an understander of the tarot. Is that a word, understander? It is
I
now.
like it. It is
But
I
now.
love
I
it.
mean,
I love
it
it.
would
Go
be
with
like
it.
this fresh view that, I mean, you had these 20, 30 decks, you're doing hundreds of readings over a couple of years. Like the amount of time you just spent immersed in it just gives you this incredible, deep perspective.
Yeah, after I read Rachel's book, so I bought all these crazy decks, like the Piotnik Veen, like these crazy weird decks. I'm so attracted to weird, crazy decks, and especially out of print old decks. So I was like, I'm reading Rachel's book. I'm like, I'm going to buy all these decks, and like, I'm reading the book, and the book had nothing to do with any of the decks that I purchased. So my
Right.
boyfriend was like in town. I'm like, go pick up a fucking Rider-Waite right now. I just need to look at that Rider-Waite deck. So he bought me this Rider-Waite deck. And that night, after I finished reading the book, I threw a huge party. I invited like 20 people to my house, and I just read all of them that night.
That is so cool.
Wow.
I love that. I love that enthusiasm that you were like, that's it. We're
Yeah.
throwing a tarot party.
Yeah, we're throwing a and it felt like I don't know if you guys have done tarot events. That was the first one in my life, and I felt like drained to my core after that party was over in a way that I've never felt drained in my life.
Yeah.
It was just like I realized at that point you also have to protect yourself when you do the readings.
Yeah, I feel like you learn that quick when you do something like that, for sure.
Yeah, you have to set, when you do a reading, you have to set a space that's protected, and you have to give yourself time in between. If you're a genuine tarot reader and you're connecting to the spirit and the energy of the universe, and you really are putting yourself on the line, and trying to take care of the people that you're reading, it takes a lot out of you. You have to give yourself that space between the readings.
That's true. That's great advice. I hope you're listening, lovely listeners.
Yeah, listen to that advice.
Okay, well, I mean, kind of related to that, what is your favorite tarot card?
I would say like in the older Rider-Waite decks and all that kind of stuff. I'm really attracted to like the High Priestess, from the Major Arcana. It really depends on the deck. There are so many. I mean, there's a Spanish tarot that I use all the time called El Gran Tarot Esoterico, and in that the Empress and the Devil, which is called Acker in that deck, are my favorite cards. In my tarot and the Outsider Tarot, I'm really fond of the Fathom of Lights and the Root of Lights, who replace the Queen and King of Wands. They make me excruciatingly happy every time they pop up in a reading.
That's
so it's
so
really
lovely.
yeah. So it's really dependent on the deck. It's like, because there's just every deck has its card that's like connects to you. That's very special. And that's like the card that you're really happy to see. I'm never happy to see the King of Wands from the Rider-Waite in a reading, honestly.
You are never happy to see that one, like specifically from like a Smith-Waite, or yeah,
from the Smith-Waite. I mean, I kind of feel like the court cards are a little staunchy and boring from that deck in particular. I'm never happy when they show up in a reading. I don't think anyone, especially a new reader, is when they get the Rider-Waite deck. Like, I know that there's always that blockage with court cards.
Yeah. It is a topic that comes up over and over again, and we are definitely going to talk about your approach to those, 16 cards in the deck when we're talking more about your deck. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's move on to the next icebreaker question for now. So what would be like your other favorite practices. So something like astrology or Reiki or something like that. But I mean, I know you're an artist and you're a filmmaker, so maybe it's something like that. But, you know, besides tarot and witchy stuff, what else is your fave?
I love astrology. So, that's a big part of the tarot practice too. In the last few years, I've been taking private astrology lessons.
Ooh.
So that's been a big, huge, I don't know what the word is. It's been a very big movement in my life to get astrology up to par. But other than that, yes, I am a filmmaker, and I love, love, love to edit films. I love to illustrate and draw and paint. And then karaoke.
Ooh. I like
Karaoke.
that. Do you have a karaoke song?
Well, actually, my boyfriend and I met at a karaoke bar.
That's so sweet.
So that was way back in 2004 or something like that. And I was singing. I think he said when he walked in, I was singing "Oops, I Did It Again."
Yes. Oh my God, I love it.
Britney brought you together.
Britney brought us together. But the hit number I would sing back then is "My Heart Will Go On" and "Milkshake" by Kelly's.
Oh my God, like two opposite ends there. That's great.
Yeah, and then I went on to have a karaoke art project with an artist named JJ Chinois, and we had it was called the New Sound Karaoke, and it ran from 2007 to 15. We made our own karaoke videos and hosted nights all around the country, but mostly in New York. And we made these karaoke videos as these personas. Bobby Service, that was me, and she was Black Waterfall. So we have lots of karaoke videos.
Okay, well, we'll link that in the show notes for everyone.
No, don't do that.
Oh, okay. We're not going to link that for you. You're going to have to find it yourself.
Yeah, you have to search for it. So that was a big fun project. So karaoke
Cool.
art is a huge part of my life too. I love it.
You're like a walking, talking party. It's fantastic.
I love artwork that's fun. I mean, I love to have fun in my artwork. I mean, if you look at my videos, they're very serious too, but I love to have a lot of fun. I love to just like fuck stuff up. And I'm sorry, are you allowed to swear on this?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, you are. We have the E for a reason.
Yeah. We're explicit.
Good. It's not for the children. No, it is for the children.
No, sorry, it's not for your children's. I mean, unless you just swear in front of your children, which is fine. Like, they'll be all right.
Yeah.
We watch RuPaul's Drag Race every single week, and my friend's kid is very young, doesn't know what they're saying, but they're like, "Don't fuck it up." It's so funny.
I mean, like, who cares? It's fine.
You're not supposed to react to it either, so we're all like really silent.
Yeah.
Turning red. It's just like RuPaul says it, and they're like, "Don't fuck it up." Like, oh my God.
This is normal. It's fine.
Yeah. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah,
RuPaul can do whatever RuPaul wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely. RuPaul is carte blanche.
Did you know that there's actually a RuPaul Drag Race tarot deck?
I have the first one. I don't have the new one that was just on Kickstarter.
I'm so jealous of you right now. So jealous.
Did you see the one that was just on Kickstarter maybe like 3 months ago?
No, I was not even aware there was a second one.
Yeah, that one looked good. That one looked really good. I didn't manage to make that one in time, but it looked great.
I don't watch a lot of TV, but I just love RuPaul. Like, I mean, when oh my God, blank Supermodel came out, like the song, I was a kid, and I would rock to it, and my dad would get so mad, and I really didn't care. I'd like them more, and now I know why. Of course, he's changed, but that's fine. But RuPaul is just one of the humans on this planet that I'm just so glad I got to exist in the same time. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's by far the biggest show obsession. It's the only, I mean, as a reality TV show editor, as working as that in my life as well, I hate watching reality TV, but I do watch RuPaul, and I'm very obsessed with RuPaul. We all are. We have, we get together on Friday nights, and we watch every episode of RuPaul.
I love that.
Yeah.
And we watch all the extended videos on YouTube all the time. So yeah, we have a big obsession.
I love that though. I mean, like, I I'm not here for a lot of reality TV just because of how overly produced it is. Like I just there's a cat on screen.
He loves
Is that
podcasts.
Jimmy
James.
Jimmy James. That's
Yeah.
adorable.
I'm sorry, I gasped when you were talking. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It's
Couldn't help
totally
it.
fine.
Okay, so the next question is, what does magic mean to you?
In this present moment, magic, I've been thinking, in my tarot deck, magic has a huge presence in the world of, in the suit of Earth and the suit of Roses, which is one of the four suits. But it's like in this moment, it's really about mundane magic, looking for magic in the things that we overlook. So, the natural world. So for me, it really is connected. Magic is super duper connected to the natural world, the things we grow, the cycles of the seasons, flowers, vegetables, plants, the animals. It's just like I see so much magic in all of that and the power of all of that. When I was a child, it was definitely like bewitched type magic,
Yes.
And then it turned into like kind of gothy magic when I was in college, and I kept like a book of shadows and cast spells with orris root and all these kind of things. There was a place in Boston called Arsenic and Old Lace, so I would do lots of magic spells with candles. And so now I really just think of it as being like a connection to nature. And I have my stones and my crystals, so I do feel very connected to those, and my cards. And like I said, cooking, like things that connect me to my ancestors, feels very magical. Magic was going back to the village where my great grandparents were born in Italy.
Ooh.
And walking on the same steps that they walked on.
Yeah.
All of that type of stuff that's pure magic as I see it.
Mm-hmm.
I
No,
got
you're
goosebumps.
you're fully, yes, exactly. I was just gonna say you are so speaking like specifically Jekanovia's language, like
to my
with
soul.
like the ancestor stuff, the kitchen stuff, the mundane idea of everything with just like plants and growing and all, like that is like Jekanovia to a T. Like, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's so important for us to be able to see magic as not like, it's fun, Bewitched and Chilling Adventures and all that kind of stuff, like that's really fun magic, but we talk about this all the time, like that's not the real stuff, like there's so much. I mean, Jekanovia, I feel like you brought it up once, like just the fact that you can turn on your tap and like filtered water
Voila,
comes
there's
through it
water.
or whatever.
That's
Yeah,
magic.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you grab a handful of soil and there's literally trillions of little living creatures in your hands. Like that's magic.
Yeah. Or just like a little seed. Like this summer, I just like never stopped being amazed by I planted all these little seeds, and that they turn into these gigantic like squashes and gourds and tomatoes and beautiful flowers, and they're just like these little nothings, and there's enough in the ground to make them turn into these gorgeous things. It's really special and really beautiful, and nothing more special than growing something and eating it, and having it sustain you and really honoring it that way, feeling that cycle happen, and sustaining your body.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that more people experience this past year, just with having to be at home more and all that kind of stuff. All right, so next question then. I mean, you might have already answered half of it really, but what is your favorite TV show or film or both?
Well, I mean, the thing we're obsessed now is Drag Race, but Dark Shadows from the 1960s is a really massive influence on me stylistically. And my boyfriend and I, when we first got together in 2007, I bought him, he mentioned it, and so I bought him a DVD set of the first season. And the first season, we watched the entire thing. The whole series is 1,250 episodes. So the first season is about 340 episodes. And we finished the first season. We realized we were just through one day.
Yeah, so you and I talked about this like offline, whatever, before, not offline, sorry, like on Instagram before, and that has blown my mind. Like, I haven't had time to check it out yet. It is on my list and I cannot wait. But the fact that, first of all, 340 episodes blows my mind. Then them only taking place over one day. I mean, I feel like no other show has ever done that.
I don't think any shows are, I mean, every episode's 18 minutes. It aired during the day. The way soap operas were made back then is that the sets were all built in one big space, and cameras were extremely expensive. So things were shot in one take.
Right.
And so everything was happening at once. So like the cameras were literally moving around the spaces. Actors were crazy, changing clothes and stuff like that. But
like a play.
So it just feels, it's basically like a play. So we were just getting 18 minutes installments. I think it's maybe not the first 300 episodes, maybe the first 120. It was just all just we were like, we haven't moved past the first day yet. Like, it's like they're still talking about when Victoria arrived this morning. And we were like a year watching it. And it's like, oh my God, she arrived this morning? What's going on here? It was meant to be like a gothic horror movie. There's like kind of nothing that happens in those first 100 episodes. You hear some moaning coming from the basement, but it's just a lot of bewildering in a strange, disturbed young boy. But yeah, it's very bizarre. But then it gets weirder and weirder. Turns out the boy's mother is a phoenix.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I seriously can't wait to check it out. It sounds wild.
Yeah, I really want to watch it again, but my boyfriend is like, no way.
It's like a huge investment, though. Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it took about 8 years to get through the whole thing.
Wow.
All right.
That is a
I'm
commitment.
going to buckle up then.
Yeah, buckle up, and it's like really good if you want to zen out because it's very slow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really melodramatic and insane, but and then when you get really into it, you start going to the conventions like we did, and you meet the weirdest people.
Oh my God, I love this. It is in a way kind of giving me a little bit like Twin Peaks vibes, not because it's taking place over one day in Twin Peaks, but like Twin Peaks is also pretty slow. I hear people complain about the pacing of that show all the time. For me, I find it perfect. I mean, I don't mind something that's slower like that and stuff that's super weird. And, people definitely go to conventions and meet weirdos at it. And yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. And Lynch was, cites his inspiration as Dark Shadows, that original series.
Wow.
So you see a lot of like what Lynch took and, kind of his inspirations from that entire show. Really embracing the mistakes that show was making. Yeah.
Well, this seems like a perfect spot for future Jasmine to insert an ad for Damn Fine TV for our Twin Peaks Season 1 rewatch that Bobby is also going to be a part of. So that will drop right here.
Good.
Note to self.
Yeah. Listeners, 5 miles south of the Canadian border, 12 miles west of the state line, I'm Special Agent Jasmine Lila.
Looking for a clean place, reasonably priced, and wondering what kind of trees these are? I'm Sheriff Mel's Bells.
6 months ago, we promised we'd return to Twin Peaks.
And it's finally happening.
It is happening again.
That gum you like is coming back in style.
Yes, we're making our long-awaited return with a rewatch of Twin Peaks Season 1.
I mean, at least it didn't take 25 years.
You know what Coop says. Every day, once a day, give yourself a present.
And let that be Damn Fine TV's Twin Peaks Tuesdays this year on Wednesdays.
Starting on February 24th, 11:30 a.m., wherever you listen to podcasts.
Isn't it too dreamy?
Well, since I basically had to sit that one out because I don't really watch a lot of TV like I mentioned, so I'm going to ask you what your favorite song is, either right now or ever, or both.
That's a very difficult question for me to answer.
I am so glad you said that. I was challenged too. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, so many songs. I mean, in the past, it's impossible to figure one of my favorites. I mean, the stupid song I love right now is Doja Cat and Sawiti's best friends. It's like,
Okay.
I don't know. I just keep playing it. And then I did go back to Britney Spears Circus after the Free Britney,
Mm-hmm.
Framing Britney Spears documentary aired. And I've been listening to that pretty heavily all week. I hadn't listened to that since, God, 2009 or something, but it's a solid album. And, it was really inspiring me this week as I launched the Kickstarter
Yeah.
to hear that after watching that documentary. And it's just like, it has like some really good hooks, and
Mm-hmm.
it's very energizing. So I will say that I will say "Kill the Lights" by Britney Spears.
Yeah. And so because of you, I have also been listening to that album, although I'll admit I've only made it fully through like twice, I think, because I'm just like, I'm a sucker for the radio hit. I just keep going back to Circus. I'm like, that's like my morning song now. It's so, yeah, energizing is a great word for it.
It's a good song. That song, I loved it back then. When it came out, and not a big fan of Womanizer, but
No, it's not
I
great. I mean,
yeah
it's like it's catchy, but it's kind of annoying. Yeah.
yeah it wasn't the best song, but yeah, Circus and Kill the Lights and
Yeah.
Unusual You, and the
Mm-hmm.
song that's really got me this time around that I didn't like the last time was Blur.
Okay.
Where it's
Interesting.
just like, turn the lights out. This room is way too fucking bright.
Yeah.
And she's just like, where are you? And she's
Yeah.
lost and disoriented. I feel like that's the real moniker song of the album. Like, she's in this kind of haze. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
so, yeah, it really fits really well with the moment that she's in.
Yeah. Love that this has been your album to help you launch.
Yes, yeah, it was my launch album. And you're very connected to it because you got the Britney card in the mail.
Yeah. And I mean, so I went through like a phase this past summer where I was listening to a lot of stuff from my childhood, like Britney, like Spice Girls. Like it was just all coming back for me. And Britney is the thing that kind of stuck. And then it went away for a bit. But then I think I saw you post about the card a while back. And then when you were offering the free cards for the selfies, and I knew I was going to get Britney, like it's just been Britney nonstop for me since then. And like, I thought it would fizzle out by now, but every day, like there are certain moments throughout the day where I'm like, all right, time to listen to Baby One More Time. Like that's my Baby One More Time moment for the day.
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah,
it's
it's a
been so
Britney
nice.
revolution. It's a Britney, yeah, it feels like she's in our consciousness again. Um,
I agree. And I keep meaning to look back at like maybe what was happening astrologically, like when she was either really going through it or when she was first coming out to see if there's like any similarities or anything. I just haven't had time, but it would be interesting to check out. And I mean, sort of speaking of that, what's your SMR? What's your sun, moon, rising?
my rising sign is Leo, sun is Sagittarius, and my moon is Taurus.
That's what the moon is. I knew that it was like a very
Hmm.
fiery big three, but I couldn't remember the moon. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and the moon in Taurus has always been one that perplexed me for a while, but it makes sense now. I mean, I do love my home, and I love, that's where the kind of love the natural world comes in, and the earth element, and the moon is um, exalted
mm-hmm.
in Taurus, so it really feels at home there.
Yeah.
So I do feel like a sense of security being at home, even though my Sagittarian sun, directs me to travel and
Yeah.
explore. So, it's always been a push pull between those two as well.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. Do you find that you identify a lot with the rising with Leo?
I would say that I really identified with that Leo rising when I was younger. So, the way I learned about rising signs is, that's the mask we wear into the world, and it slowly kind of comes off, and our sun, we gives way to our sun signs. And so I think that that's very true for me because I was such a person that wanted to be very much the center of attention. And, when I first started college, I was a club kid, and, I couldn't like go anywhere in town without knowing somebody on the street. And, it was very popular at that moment. And that's what I wanted, but that's definitely not what I want now. Just like that's not my dream to be like that type of party center of attention.
Yeah, but even the way that you talk about how you like to create art and make film and have fun and fuck shit up is like I feel like that there's some Sag in there for sure, but that feels very Leo rising to me, like just playing and having fun.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's totally Leo rising. Yeah, it's Leo. It's definitely all that Leo stuff is always there. It's always
Yeah.
going to be like fun and But I think like the self-centeredness that I experienced then, like a lot of, I mean, of course we're all I'm still self-centered. Obviously,
Yeah.
I think that's a lifelong goal. But
Sorry, I did not say yeah about you. I said it about me for sure. Like just agreeing.
Yeah. So self-centered. I'm so self-centered.
Yeah, I only had you on the show to just expose you for how self-centered you are.
So now we're going to get right to the reason why we had you on this podcast.
Let's get real.
We have a few special guests that are calling in from 1995.
Come
Surprise!
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's get into the Outsider Tarot deck then, shall we?
Yes. I want to hear about this.
Let's get into it.
I've got Bobby, ahead of the show, we did send you a few questions that we had, but then afterwards, Jaconovia came up with these amazing questions. I feel like my questions now are just the basics. This is what you would get at any interview. And then Jaconovia swooped in and was like, here's the good shit. So we're definitely going to do a mix of both.
All right. I want all the shit.
Okay. So we're going to just start with the basics. I feel like we got a little bit of background on this already, but why create a deck in the first place? What's the call there to, because I know a lot of people read tarot, but not everyone creates a deck.
That's a good question. I've always, as an artist, there's so many ways I could answer that question. When I was a kid, I was an outsider, and I was, I don't know why. I have the story that I write about in the book for the Outsider Tarot that my first day of school, I arrived and I had this little inchworm doll named Little Louie. It was something that came with one of my grandmother's bottles of perfume, and I brought it to school, and I would only talk through it. So I had it at the desk, and I would make Little Louie talk. And it was just I felt not confident as myself. So Little Louie was my alternate personality. And I made everybody laugh and everybody loved it. And the teacher thought I was being distracting and said to my parents that you can't bring it anymore. And so Little Louie's head was on a spring. And I took the head off because it went on and off. And, the teacher the next day asked me a question, and I raised my finger, and Little Louie was on there, and I was like, here's Little Louie again.
That's awesome.
But in that moment, I literally became the freak of the school. People started laughing at me and thinking I was a weirdo, and it was there's something wrong with this person. And I kind of lived life as this outsider, just the weirdo that no one wanted to talk to that followed me for all of junior high and all that stuff. I kind of just started becoming really interested in, comic book bad guys, these very outlandish personalities, the Wonder Woman's nemesis, the Cheetah, or the Joker, the 60s Batman TV show, and all those really eccentric. They're very queer to me. And in the 80s, that was those were my queer icons. Growing up in the suburbs, there were no other. These were people that could express themselves and be weird and crazy and personality. And when that first tarot deck got thrown down in front of me, the Tarot of the Cat People and all the tarots I saw after that, it felt like a collection of these beautiful queer weirdos, even though that they don't really look queer in the Rider Waite, like in the Cat People deck and some of these other decks, the Alice in Wonderland and all these things.
Right.
It felt like a place where a weirdo could exist and thrive, and like a document of weirdness. So I really connected to this idea that there were all these weird personalities and scenes that reminded me of this place that I thought of as a safe place growing up, like a place to be weird. So then, it was always my impetus to create a tarot deck. And really, I felt so connected to that process. The thing that was missing was I needed to understand the history of the tarot and the esoteric framework behind the tarot before I went ahead and made one. I just wouldn't give myself permission to just recreate the Rider Waite when I didn't understand the images. So I really needed to understand the principles behind it. And so I nerded out on that. And once I finally got a good handle, it wasn't just Rachel Pollack, it was actually also many other books, but specifically Robert Wang's The Kabbalistic Tarot, that really brought the framework into this extremely clear perspective for me. So,
I mean, we talked about this a bit on the live that we did a couple of days ago as well, but like each of your cards has this very specific story to it. I mean, and I know that they're not all based on people, but they're an experience or they're an energy, or, you know, very often they are based on a person that you knew or that you admire or whatever. But I mean, like, it's to the point where you have titles for each of these cards, which I find so amazing. And it just really helps personalize and connect to this. But like, where has all of that come from? Is it just your life experience? Is that where you're drawing the inspiration from? Or is it a mix of things? Like,
it was, I think in the beginning, it was like I wanted to pay homage to these like
right.
outsiders, these beautiful people that were so like inspirational to me. So yeah, a lot of those are based on personal stories and personal connections or things that I've learned through personal connections. But then, you know, at some point, you know, maybe 5 years into making it, I was like, I should stop down here and open my world up a little more and search and not be rushing to finish this. And like, if somebody were to come into my life, I should be very open to adding them into the deck and taking something less strong out. Jackie Shane, trans R&B singer from the 1960s, you know, was getting a lot of notoriety a few years back. I was listening to NPR and they were talking about Jackie Shane, and I went and bought the album and read about her life. And so I took the Five of Lights and I changed it to Jackie Shane, because I was like, this is a person I didn't know of before, but that's an outsider. That's a real outsider. And Riyad Ferez, who ran Radio Free Syria, really became the inspiration for the Four of Lights. So, you know, it was a matter of just being like, I don't need to rush this. I should see what other stories start to touch me before I finish this. And actually, you know, in the summer, I was like, oh, I would love to put, like, I didn't even know, like, you know, Marsha P. Johnson. I thought I ran around about putting Marsha P. Johnson in there. And then I was like, I really do want Marsha P. Johnson in there. And I would love to put George Floyd in there. Their energy is in there, but, you know, I mean, there's just new people that keep coming. So, you know, version 2.
I was just going to say version 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to definitely make a version 2 and swap out some cards, you know.
What I love about what you're describing is that, I mean, it feels very almost magician to me. Like, this whole deck feels like like it's just all channeled. It's just this huge process of just being open to anything that was coming in. And I don't know. I just think that's beautiful. And honestly, I haven't talked to a lot of deck creators, so I don't know if this is a more universal experience than I'm aware of. But I just find this so fascinating to hear that, like, you can step back and just say, let me stop rushing this. Let me wait for the right energy, the right archetype to come through. And when I know, like, that's what I'll, you know, put into the card.
I mean, you know, the name Outsider Tarot didn't come to me until maybe 2 years ago. It was like a collection of these personalities, and I didn't know exactly what to call it. So there was a lot of that. I mean, a lot of these cards, I have enough card designs to probably make 5 decks. You know, some of these cards have 15, 20 versions. You know, I just kept running around, and certain people like Mark Lepore is a filmmaker who his energy resides in the 8 of Bottles right now. He was all over the deck in different places. He's one of my mentors, but he was in the 5 of Lights, and he was in different places, you know, so certain energies actually moved all over the place around the deck too, until they found a home. And certain cards really were hard to find any energy to put into. And so that's when I started thinking, like, it doesn't have to be a person. It could be like the essential workers in the 7 of Roses is an indication. I was like bending over to be like, who's the person here? And I was like, it doesn't have to be a person. It's actually people.
Right.
It's like, it's a group of people that are outsiders. And that, in that case, it's factory workers that are, you know, that completely build our world around us that we pay no mind to.
Mm-hmm.
Or that most people pay no mind to. So there's a lot of those. So I decided to just embrace those as well, like refugees and migrants, and their energy is so important and often unseen.
I love that you took your time with it and you waited for the right influences to come for the cards. And the fact that you already have all these different versions of it just says that it was like you were, what's the word? Like you were curating. The deck
Yes.
isn't only a tarot deck. It's like you're curating this deep and spiritual connected art. So it's almost like you're getting an art gallery in your hand.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and also like shedding light on these different. It kind of like makes you like. I kind of assume that like some tarot readers are just going to be curious about who's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The beautiful thing is, I mailed these cards from the promo deck all over the world, and it also sheds light onto all these other people, who are taking photos
Yes.
with the cards.
Yes.
And someone wrote me the other day on Instagram and said, I've been following she's new to Instagram, and she was like, every single person that goes up, I follow and I talk to them. I was like, that's
Oh,
really cool.
wow.
Beautiful.
To take the extra step of actually talking is a whole other thing because, yeah, I've been following the hashtag and adding people along as I find them. But yeah, to reach out to all of them, I mean, that's really cool. And I mean, we've talked about this on Instagram, I think, Bobby, but like the fact that you have released this deck during Aquarius season, which is it's a very group oriented type of sign. And the fact that it's in your 7th house, which is like relationships and one-on-one kind of thing. And you sent out all these cards and you got all these selfies. And it's just, I think it was just such a great time to do all of that. Like, I just love the fact that the deck is going to have that energy on top of it,
Yeah, totally. Like it has that it's an Aquarian thing, It was such a
Mhm.
big decision about when to release it. And I've been hemming and hawing about it for years, but like, and the idea was maybe to do it before Christmas or like in the winter sometime. But then I was like, no, it has to be Aquarius season. Has to be the season of revolutionaries and the public and the
Yeah.
society, So
For sure. It's just really beautiful how it has worked out on a collective scale, but also a very personal scale for you. Like, I just think there's such a magic to that. So
I've met some amazing people through it, like you, and meet the both of you, and so
yeah.
it's an incredible experience to put it out there and to be a tarot creator in this moment, especially after the changing of the guard here in the United
For
States.
sure.
On the presidential level, like
Yeah.
we took things back to a certain extent.
Yeah. Work to be done for sure, but a big
Oh
step.
God, yeah. So much work to be done, but at least we know we might be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like the people you're working with are probably a little bit more inclined to maybe help you.
Yeah, they care about human life. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a pretty important thing. I wanted to go back because I mentioned how each card kind of has a title. Do those titles, are they going to be on the final copy of the deck, or are they in the book? Are they somewhere in this final iteration?
Yeah, so every single card in the deck has a 2-page spread in the book, and so that for all the minor arcanas, the major arcanas do not have titles; they just go by their names.
Yeah.
But the minor arcana all have a title, and that title is on top of the page of the card, so it's like it heads the page in the book. It won't be on the card itself, and that's kind of a nod to like the Golden Dawn system from the the Rider-Waite. All those cards like have some funny name to them, like the Lord of I can't remember any of them anymore. But
yeah, some of them from like the Thoth deck are super interesting.
Oh well, those words that are written on the bottom, you mean? That are I know when I first took Rachel's workshop, there are a lot of people that had the Thoth deck, and they actually used a bandsaw to cut the edges off straight to the artwork because they hate those words so much.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, some of them are a bit much.
I can't. I mean, I have the first edition of that deck, and I never use it because I hate those words. Like they tinge and destroy every reading. You honestly can't give a reading to anyone with those cards without all they do is read the word.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need, honestly, it doesn't need anything in terms of imagery. It just needs the word, because you can't give a reading. And I'm the same way. All I do is I look at the word and it's just like sorrow.
Yeah,
How else
great.
are you going to read
Thanks.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, when we were covering the suits on this show, I had originally started by reading out the titles from those cards because that's primarily where I was using the astrological correspondences. Like that was my inspiration, really. But after a while, I was just like, this doesn't fit. This is not working for me. I'm scrapping this whole thing. I'm not saying these titles anymore. Forget it.
No, I know. I mean, it's like
So,
the little white book. It's like, who came up with this? Like, you
right.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. I mean, the Six of Wands, victory. I mean, it's just like, okay, what else?
Yeah. Where's the nuance?
Yeah. So, cards, tarot cards, in every single reading I do, they change wildly based on the person, the place, the cards around them, the position in the spread. They never mean the same thing. The Six of Wands, when I start doing readings, I quickly realized just like absolutely did not mean the same thing. That could be arrogance, That person thinks that they're in that card, thinks that they're
Right.
that they've won or something, or they're strutting through. That could be a hero or it could be Donald Trump.
Totally.
So,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about the astrological stuff. You already kind of said that astrology is a pretty important practice for you. You've been taking private lessons and stuff, but was that always a part of the deck? Like, was that there from day one, or is that something that evolved with it? Just like why was the astrology connection important for you to be a part of the deck?
In the beginning, I will admit that, the deck, when I first started working on it in 2012, I was not a good astrologer. So the deck was creation of the deck was definitely a means to deepen my connection to the tarot, to astrology,
Mm-hmm.
to the tree of life, to all the sephira that are on the tree of life, to all the energies, to the Hebrew alphabet, which I almost never mention. It has a huge influence over my deck and of course the Rider-Waite and all of these things. So all of that was an incredible learning practice. So the astrology is baked in there for sure. I did wind up sticking with the the kind of Hermetic Kabbalah assignments
Yeah.
of the planet. So every card has many astrological implications, because all the minors from ace to 10 on the tree of life, like for instance, the nines on the tree of life are all connected to the moon. The sevens are all inherently connected to Venus. But then if you get across the sevens, they also have a secondary
Right.
astrological association. So right off the bat, you have 3 planetary connections in every single card, right? So it's very complicated. Like the 7 of lights from my deck shows like a person riding on top of a car in this wild moment. And so there's a lot of Venus energy there. There's a lot of instinct energy there, but also there's Mars and Leo in there. So you have Venus, Mars, Leo. You have the seventh Sephiroth from the Tree of Life. You have fire, the element of fire. So it's just there's so much going into that equation for that card, and then of course you have that outsider energy that I added that to that equation. What would an outsider be looking like in this situation?
Yeah. Well, and speaking of you adding things to the deck, there are some other things that I like to call outsider remixes, starting off with the fact that there are no court cards in the Outsider Tarot. And I mean, I feel like I can explain why. I mean, there's no royalty. Outsiders aren't really royalty, right? So it kind of makes sense to remove that. But what have you replaced it with? What did you do instead?
Yeah, I always like to say, like bloodline, blood privilege has like we resist against that crap. So I always bristle with this idea of king and queen, and knight and page, and they're really privileged, right? But yeah, so they're called elementals, and if we have the suit of lights, that is inherently a fire suit. So each one of those four court cards are replaced with elementals: the spark, the billow, the fathom, and the root. So the spark, the spark of lights, sparks are fire, lights are fire, is like a pure element of fire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the embodiment of fire meets fire, or fire coming into the world of fire. And the billow of lights is bringing air into the world of fire. And the fathom of lights is is almost like the temperance card, bringing water and fire together and finding that magical balance, whereas the root has earth in the realm of fire, that grounded energy. And that's where you get Shirley Chisholm, like a leader, a political leader, fiery in her passions and blazing new trails as the first Black congresswoman in the United States and the first Black woman to run for president on a major party ticket, the Democratic ticket, back in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Just was, that's perfect to me as in terms of earth meets fire, So that really opened up, in any sense, like anyone can get that. Like if they understand the elements, those two, the meeting of elements and what they might mean in your life. Like, what does it mean with, water and water coming together?
Yeah.
And they all get reversed, right? So it's two of each.
Yes.
There's always fire and water, and then there's water and fire somewhere else. So.
Yeah. And I mean, we've even talked about on, last season we did an episode on the court cards and the elements. And that's kind of how we approached it, was to not reduce it, but kind of take it back to the basics of what would the element be. So, you already have that inherently with the suits, and then something like, all the queens are then water. So it's water plus whatever that suit, right? So I think that that's just such I don't know. It's just better than looking at somebody sitting on a fucking throne or something. Like, I mean, it just gives you a little bit more,
Yeah.
Yeah. In the end, the appearance of those cards isn't exactly that different than the rest of the minor arcana. It's just that the equation to arrive at those images is different. So they do mix into the minors perfectly. And in the book, I say, when a elemental shows up, that, the minor arcana could be talking about energy within ourselves and certain situations that we're going through personally as the reader of the cards. But, I started, even recently, this is just this year, I was thinking of the elementals as really specifically pointing towards outside people. So when they appear in a reading, you don't have to do it that way, but I mean, it's actually opened it up, like, to me, when they appear, to be like, who could this be? Or is this a version of you that you need to become, or something like that? So I think of it more specifically as an embodiment with the elementals than the other cards.
No, I really like that. And I think that because those 16 cards seem to trip people up so much, that yes, what you've said is a suggestion, but it is a way to work with your specific deck. So I kind of like that you've included that, just to give people some extra guidance, and they can throw it out if they don't want it, but at least it's there.
Most people just read the images, and it wasn't until maybe 4 months ago that I even had my own deck, or, it was in the summer where I finally printed a deck that had words on it. Like, I always did my readings with a version of the deck that was just the image. So no one knew what they were looking at,
Yeah.
There's a beauty to that. I would love to offer a version of the deck that has no words on it.
That would be pretty neat, actually, because then people aren't immediately trying to go to what they already know about tarot as well,
Yeah, and that's a big thing, right? Like, when you make a new deck, people are always equating it back, and rightly so, because that's their knowledge. Like the Two of Lights. What's the Two of Wands? What's the Two of Wands from the Rider-Waite? Or what's the Two of Wands from the Thoth deck or the Marseille? And it's like it stops you from thinking specifically about that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so another thing along those lines is that you have decided to rename the suits, and I wanted to know what was the impetus behind that.
Well, I mean, I knew that I was never going to use the actual suits.
Okay. Just something that didn't work for you right from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, if you're making a new tarot deck, like, that's just par for the course. But as an artist in my life, there have been these 4 things that I've been really obsessed with as images throughout my entire life, honestly, like not even my artistic career, but light bulbs, just always like so magical and fascinating to me as a child. Like this, what I say in the book and over again is just like this little filament on these 2 metal wires that gets electrocuted. It's just like a little sun in the center of its own universe. And its power to illuminate is very basic, just like what we're talking about. You're saying like, oh, my Brita filter makes filtered water. It's
Sure.
magic.
Yeah.
Magic. I was sitting when I started graduate school. We were looking at this catalog that was sitting on the table, and my film teacher there was like some stupid thing about a lamp, and she was just like, "Oh yeah, you turn on the lamp, and the room is revealed." And I laughed really hard, but then I'm like, actually, that's true.
Yeah.
It's like we see so it's just like this beautiful, powerful little object that, and it's so indicative of the idea that, when we bought this house that we're in now, there was a whole shelf full of light bulbs from the 50s and 60s that had never been used. And that's the idea behind the Suit of Lights. Like you could get the Ace of Lights in a reading, and you may never bring that illumination anywhere in your life. You just keep it, and it does nothing. It just gathers dust until someone else finds it, like me, and plugs it in. It blows out after 2 days. But it's just like that type of stuff. The bottles I've always been obsessed with bottles, and I had this collection behind my bed when I was a little kid. And also when we bought this house, there were all these bottles buried in the ground that were just in the trash. That it's just like the idea that bottles are just so everywhere in our lives, and they give shape to the water. And it's just like this whole idea that as opposed to a cup, which has its connections to the Holy Grail and feels like a very ceremonial object, the bottle is very perfunctory and mundane, but has the same purpose. And we tend to overlook that. The eye as a filmmaker is like the window into the soul, and connects to the anima, which is spirit and air. And roses, have such a, Italian connection for me. Our whole house was filled with roses, and Saint Teresa was a big presence in our household, the patron saint of roses. So everybody was always looking out for roses as symbols of answered prayers. So they're all 4 of those symbols were just like so predominant in my life.
Right. Yeah. So again, you're like drawing on this personal experience, and yet it's so, they fit perfectly for those specific suits, which I find super interesting. Like it's kind of a meant to be feeling that I'm getting,
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of tortured myself with the bottles specifically, because I actually drew an entire suit, which was shells. And then I destroyed the whole suit.
Okay.
So you could see the shells in 2 of the cards, the 2 of bottles. They're embracing an egg, and so that was meant to be the two of shells. I love that drawing so much. I kept it and just added 2 bottles into the card. And the other one is the 10 of bottles, which the beginning is a shell.
Yeah.
So shells, for some reason, I just had to admit to myself I had no real connection to them. Personally, they were convenient, but I didn't feel a magical connection to them. I just thought bottles were a little basic, and I was embarrassed to put them in at first. But then I was like,
"Oh my gosh!" I'm so glad you changed your mind, because even the explanation that you just gave to us now, I was like, "Oh yeah," like I feel sort of bad for bottles. Like I've been treating them wrong all these years. Like they deserve my respect.
Yeah. Exactly right.
And it just takes you back to that mundane magic. It's something that we all have and work with every day, and it's so accessible. It's not, some fancy grail, like you said. It's the bottle.
Yeah,
the bottle.
So it's bringing that mundane right into the magic.
Also you think about pill bottles and elixirs, and then I discovered Bellarmine bottles. So it brought like all these discoveries. Bellarmine bottles, just this idea that what witches in England would use in like the 1500s to break spells. They'd create clay bottles in the effigies of people that had curses on them. and they'd fill them with teeth and hair and put them on the fire until they exploded. So I found like crazy bottle stories, and then Britney and her perfume bottle.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, my final question is around the Major Arcana. So there's no figures there. Tell us why.
So the other thing is I did draw the Major Arcana in the beginning with figures in it. So I have a whole version of the Major Arcana, 2 entire different versions with figures.
Wow, you really do have like 80 decks.
And I like that, but then I kept thinking, like, why are these people here? You know, and it hit me like 5 years ago. I was like, I have to get rid of him. I have to get rid of the figures. That's the big problem, because this doesn't make any sense anymore that there should be a person here. It's all about the energy. And these are, so the majors, you know, are cause, minors are effect. You know, majors prompt us to act. And I thought I was thinking about the word act a lot and being on stage and, you know, performing. And so I was like, oh, what if you just get the props, the set pieces and the costumes, and you have to imagine yourself performing in them? So that I just took the pieces out. You know, I was just like, what are the props here?
Yeah.
What are the set pieces? What are the costumes that are quintessential to that? You know, and it really goes with the fool's journey, that all you see in the fool is the bandana. All of us are the fool. We put that bandana on, and then we jump in scene to scene to scene, and we perform those scenes. So I really love this idea that, you know, we could just, all, as outsiders, put ourselves in there, you know, and imagine ourselves in there. And that's a guided meditation that you get, like with each card. Like, if you imagine yourself interacting with those objects that are, like in the magician, it's just a top hat and a sketchbook and a fire, you know, what comes out of it? So I've written little stage directions to go with each Major Arcana card, that you don't even have to use them after the first time. But it says, you know, put that hat on your head, feel the fire going through your body and radiating out of all your fingertips, and feel your body alive and electrified with energy. And then get to that sketchbook, and, you know, what do you start writing? So it's just like, it's meant to activate psychic spaces and psychic visions, direct connections to those major arcana energies.
Oh my goodness. You said estimated delivery date is August, and like, I need it to be August already. Like, I don't want to zoom through summer that quickly, but
No. I'm praying it'll be a little faster. You know,
I mean,
Amanda,
fingers crossed.
The deck is done. It's designed. It's finished.
Yeah.
It's at the printers. They've approved everything. I got one round of proofs. They have to send me one more round of proofs when they get back from vacation. So, I mean, and they get back from vacation 2 weeks before the Kickstarter ends.
Okay.
The Kickstarter's funded. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it could, you know, it could be sooner, but maybe I'm being naive about that. It's my first deck I've ever printed. So
yeah, and I'm so unfamiliar with the process, but I mean, let's all just put it out there that it'll come earlier than August. Let's just get that energy out there.
I want it to come before summer, because I really want to see all the summer readings.
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely? Yeah, like I can totally see myself sitting outside in the backyard, or even like around a campfire or something. Yeah.
Yes.
May 2-4 weekend. Jazz can be outside the backyard.
Yes.
Yes, with a cocktail or a iced tea or a brunch. You know, I mean, it's just so nice. I love to do readings outside on the porch, or I just love to ride my bike down and sit out by the river that's out there and pull cards. And I'd love for it to be coming in time for the beginning of summer.
All right. Well, Jekanovia, you have some really fun questions that I'm super excited to hear.
All right. Well, my very first question is, what was the very first card that you created out of the Outsider Tarot? So I know that you have several versions of them. So let's just talk about the ones that made it to this printing.
Oh, that actually survived?
Yes.
There's, I think, 4 from my original design from 2012 that made it through. One of them is the 7 of Lights, which is the young person in the motel room in their underwear.
Cool.
That was definitely there as part of the original design. And I do, and so of the ones that survived, that was definitely one of the first. I still have the original drawing I did.
Okay. Well, I have a follow-up for that. So did you choose that image or did it choose you? Did it just like show up and you had to create it, or did you mindfully need to create it?
It was in my mind. It was in my consciousness, right? And so that was
Yeah.
before I had the Outsider Tarot as a specific idea in mind. I was coming at this from a very like queer perspective. So that one is, kind of was definitely one of the more open-ended ones. And I struggled with like the idea of like, should I get rid of this and replace it with a very specific outsider energy? But it really connects to so many ideas. And the Hustler is the name of that card now. And my partner has a poem that he wrote that is just so beautiful from his collection of poetry. He's a writer, which serves as the quote for that card. All the major arcanas have stage direction. All the minor arcanas have quotes from outsiders that serve as like a kind of energetic jumping off point for every card. And that particular card is a poem by my partner. So it's kind of loosely about a young hustler. So there's that energy and that I'm so glad I never got rid of that, because so many people like really unpack that card,
Yeah.
and open it up. So whoever that figure is very dynamic, and it's very psychically intuited.
Well, then I'm glad it stayed in.
Yeah.
Well, the next card is related, the next question. And I'd like to know, what is the very last card that you created out of this deck? So what was the final one, the final piece of the puzzle?
Well, there was a group of 4 that came in last, all at the same time. And that one of them is the Lee Bowery card, which is one of my favorites now. That's the 4 of Roses. So I use that. It's like kind of like the moniker for one of the emblem cards for the Outsider Tarot. The 8 of Bottles is a brand new card that shows the bottles all being poured out upside down. The Resistance card with the 3 of Eyes with the fists is a redesign, and that also happened at the same time. And I added a new version of the 2 of Bottles. The first version has 2 masculine type figures, and so there's 2 versions in the deck. One has more feminine energy, and the other one has more masculine energy. The first one was supposed to be Basquiat and Kerouac, and kind of a fantasy relationship. So the second one and then those kind of roles just fell off of it. And now there's this other version. And Britney was the 2 versions of the Billows of Bottles. I redesigned that. So there's one that's related to Dorothy Parker, the other to Britney Spears. So that's 5, I think I just said. Yeah.
Wow.
Those are all the last editions.
That's so cool. It's so cool that there was so many going on at one time. That blows my mind.
I know that's not at all how I picture the process, right, Jackanovia? Like, I just so see it as like one at a time. Like, you finish one and then you can move on to the next thing. And I mean, maybe it was like that for other cards throughout the deck, but I don't know.
Well, I worked in bursts.
Okay.
So like, so initially, I did them all. I did all the cards and drawings, and I worked with a black and white deck. Then I started painting them. And then I would just work suit by suit. And so I would just I would spend like an entire summer on a suit and fine tune it. And I would draw it and sit with it and then paint it. But because the process is so parallel, it's impossible to do one card at a time, because it first required drawing, then tracing, and then painting I had to frisk it, which is like use a rubber, liquid rubber, and do the backgrounds, so it was like I did all the processes at the same time. So I was always working on at least 4 or 5 cards at once, just so I'd get the process out.
Wow.
Because it's all hand done. It's not done on the computer. So it's like my whole desk would be covered with pencils or paint or Frisket or the tracing stations, and I would just do all of it at once. So I would wait.
That's very Gemini of you.
Yeah, right?
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know if this next question I had for you will work, but let's try it. Because I was going to say, if you pulled both the first card that you created and the last card that you created together now, what would they have to say together? But maybe picking one of your first cards and one of your last cards and what message they would have.
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
Right? It's such a cool question.
Well, if I just put together the Seven of Lights with Lee Bowery, let's say.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Seven of Lights and Four of Roses, right?
Yeah, because the Seven of Lights is that little figure in the motel room that's in his underwear, and Lee Bowery is like this fully realized artist. It really does speak to like feeling like very raw and vulnerable in that beginning, in a state of being, in this kind of dilapidated motel room in a transient space. And as sometimes in that point, like feeling taken advantage of or unappreciated, that has to do with the art world and working as a filmmaker and video artist, there's just like given to these like feelings like of being inadequate. So I would say like that felt like very true to me in that moment, like that Seven of Lights and then that Four of Roses really does feel like a realization of the artwork, fully covered in the rose's face, everything in the patterns and the mysteries of the artwork of the suit of and drenched and just so confident out of that room, has left that room and has become some crazy work of art. I feel like maybe that's the tarot itself. It started in a very vulnerable place, a naive place, and ended up in this very outsidery, bold place.
That's brilliant. Just like the process of becoming.
Yes. Yeah. It really feels that way.
So good. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Because one time, I think on our first live that we did together, that card came up, the Four of Roses, and we were talking about letting your freak flag fly and just becoming so much of yourself. There's such an evolution between those two cards. That's such a great story. It's such a good through line to come from, like so exposed and then still very exposed at the end, but in a much different way.
Yeah, proud. Yeah, letting your freak flag fly. That is the tagline for the Four of Roses for that Lee Bowery card. And the other energy in that card is Gertrude Stein. The original design of that card was just Four Roses. It was pure Gertrude Stein. And I used a Gertrude Stein poem to describe that, the rose is a rose, loveliness extreme. It's this idea that we can be fully realized and fully ourselves without compromise, with no compromises.
Wave that flag. Oh, so good. So good. Okay. So during your live chat with Jazz that you had the other night, which I very much enjoyed. Thank you for both of you. You kept me company while I was working.
So much fun. Our party, our cocktail, our tarot cocktail hour.
Yes, it was so good. I enjoyed it very much. But during that, you actually touched briefly on your last minute kind of reservations or hesitation, I guess, about launching your Kickstarter. So I want to know what it was that pushed you over to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway.
Well, I think like all my friends were like, when the fuck are you going to? I mean, they're like, you have to get it out there. I've been hearing it for 2 years. Like, when are you going to release it? I'm like, my partner is always just like, he's like, are you just going to design a whole new deck again? I'm like in there and I'm replacing all these cards every year. And I'm like, I'm just going to redo this one. And then just this year in March, when I was doing those last four, he's like, what was wrong with you? And I was like, I had to do these. But then I was actually wanted to do 2 more in the fall. And he was like, no. So so it wasn't exactly from an outside. I knew it was time. I really wanted to release it. The original idea was to release it in 2016, when Trump won, and it was going to be like a revolution deck.
Yeah.
I just kept, lots of weird things happened. My dad got dementia and got very sick. And so that took a lot of time out. 2 years of my life, was really devoted to like helping my parents. But, then it just felt like, let's get it out there. I really wanted it to be involved with the transition of power that was happening in the United States here, just like demarcating our power. When, I wasn't exactly sure that Trump was going to lose the election. So win or lose, it was going to be about
Right.
us reclaiming our power in one way or another as outsiders. And I wanted this to be a tool to be available not only to people in the United States, but people, all over the world. Myanmar, there's just so much stuff. The UK, it's like all over the world. There's reason for a deck like this to inspire us to stand up and resist and be unapologetically ourselves.
Yeah. 100%.
Yep. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a powerful, powerful statement.
Yeah, really.
All right. So I'm just going to say it. I picked a favorite card already because I was totally snooping.
Oh, good.
So I caught a glimpse of adjustment. Love that fucking card. Oh my, I stared at it for so long. Okay.
The mushroom.
Yes. And okay, so there's so much to unpack here. So for the listeners, it's a toadstool and it's surrounded by like this tangled mess of thread. And that thread is connected to 2 different sewing needles that are poked into the toadstool. So, and above all this, there's like this pendulum. It looks like a crystal pendulum dangling down. And the way it's set up, it looks like it could be spiraling in either direction. So it's, I suppose, however you see it, which was beautiful in itself. So what this is saying to me, what it said to me was like, just sit still, be patient, feel your way through this, sort your shit out, because you're either missing something or you've lost it in the chaos. You've got to sort your shit out. So now that I've finished gushing about this card, can you tell us about it from your perspective and what message it holds from you?
I really love what you just said about it. That's really incredible and gorgeous. Like, I mean, I would say like that's, to sit, to connect and do exactly what you're saying, sort your shit out. Like, I could read to you the meditation for that card if you want to hear it.
I'm not going to say no.
Yes, if you'd share it with us, that'd be awesome.
Okay, so this is the stage direction for the card.
Okay.
And I guess like if in the podcast, you could just, if for people that are hearing it, it is just like you said, a red mushroom, which is the Amanita Muscaria, like the Smurf house, the very famous mushrooms, the red cap with the white speckles. So I'm going to read from you. This is what I call the stage direction for the card. The smell of freshly fallen rain imbues the atmosphere of woodland. An obsidian pendulum dangling from the fingers swings in the direction of a path. Follow it. A bright red mushroom popping through the litter of leaves catches the eye. The white speckles and cherry red skin are unmistakable indicators. This is an Amanita Muscaria, the mushroom of fairy tales. Take a seat in front of the Amanita, which is much taller than expected. Legend has it that once consumed, the Amanita will judge if a person is ready for its powerful visions. Break a piece of the cap off and place it in the mouth. The taste is quite earthy. Swallow, breathe, slow the mind. At the base of the Amanita, a faint light beams up through the blanket of leaves. Brush some of this matter away to get a better look. The eyes widen as they discover an intricate tangle of glowing threads that connect the Amanita to every other organism in the forest. A fool would connect to this vast neural network. And that's that.
Wow.
The idea is that, that mushroom is connected. There's like this idea that it's connected to to this neural network of the forest. And when we enter adjustment, we make a decision to uncover it and connect to it, to connect to all the hidden secrets of nature. And that neural network that we haven't seen before. So that Amanita ingesting it gives us that vision, or it makes us violently ill if we're not ready.
Yeah. One or the other.
That's really incredible.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I can't, I'm kind of a little speechless, honestly, like unsure how to continue because it's so, I mean, your words are so evocative. Like, I really could smell the rain. Like, I'm right there. It's really beautiful. And I was saying this the other night, like, I think that your deck is going to be so great for even beginners of tarot because you have made every card so specific and given so much love and this kind of like, stage directions to each one of them. I mean, like, I really hope that newbies get this deck because it's a
Me
whole new
too.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I hope, I haven't actually revealed these stage directions at all in my Instagram very much. So
Ooh,
it's going to be interesting to
exclusive.
see. Yeah, I mean, it's just that I wasn't exactly sure how to present them on a visual medium like Instagram.
Yeah.
So they're just there to be discovered in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, August.
Yeah. No, it's going to be so cool. I mean, I don't know. Some decks that come with longer books like this, like I'm not always that into because it's a little dry and stuffy and just like long-winded. But I think that the way that you're describing it, like it's shaking it up and it's not like that. I mean, to have a quote or to have like these stage directions / meditations, I think that really injects something fresh and different into the more kind of long form guidebook.
Yeah, it's like handing out a toolbox with the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like so when we do, my friend Kelly Simons, who is like my best friend for many years, is the laid out the book, and one of the biggest objectives when we were laying out the guidebook was that every single 2-page spread is exactly the same.
Mhm.
So you have on one page an image of the card in black and white, and the quote or the stage direction on the left side, and on the right side you have functional like background of the card. Then you have keywords below that, and below that astrological associations.
Oh,
So
wow.
so like you don't have to read. It's not like you have to sit down and read the whole book, right?
No.
You can read the beginning, which gives background. There's like maybe 10 pages, 12, 20 pages, I can't remember how many, of like the story of the deck. But the rest of the guidebook is just there for you to open up to the page to help spark your connection to the card in any way if you need it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's meant to be functional as a guidebook, like just really to not be interruptive or obtrusive to your practice.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form, hopefully.
It sounds like it is going to be exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it should be pretty too. It's going to have silver foil that got unlocked in the Kickstarter.
Stretch
program.
goals.
The stretch goal got unlocked. Hey.
Pretty.
Well, that was, I mean, I feel like Jackanovia, that wrapped up your questions, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
I can't follow that.
I love all of the questions. We went really in depth.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, thank you for sharing so much of the process and the journey with us. I mean, I think that like I say this a lot, like I feel like we do this podcast because we get to have great conversations, and I mean it's a bonus that people listen, but I'm super excited for people to hear all about this too. Like there's so much, I don't know, it was just a very juicy conversation. But
so fun to talk with you guys. I love it.
Oh, good. Thank you. So fun to talk to you.
Been great.
Jasmine, you and I have talked so much, but yeah, it's so nice to have the both of you and like to have this like what would you call it? Like a coven?
Yes, exactly.
A coven triangle.
Yes, you're part of the coven now for sure. But I mean, tell us, because I mean, things might change by the time this episode comes out. It's coming out on February 25th. So there will be 2 weeks left in the campaign at that point. But at this point, 2 stretch goals, I think, have been unlocked. So, I mean, why don't you just chat about what some of those are and what might be available to people?
Yeah, so the deck is funded. It got funded in 5 hours. And then within 10 hours, the first stretch goal of the silver foil was unlocked. So those are beautiful details that appear in the box in the book. I'm really excited because I really designed it to have that. And then the next stretch goal is a reading cloth, which I feel like, from Rachel Pollack is an integral part of a tarot deck, actually, because, wrapping the deck in a natural material when you store it, if it's one of your most used decks, is very important. And, this is also something that I designed that you could have like a protective circle to do readings inside of.
Right.
And it has the glyphs of all the astrological symbols. The North and South Node are featured predominantly in there. So I'm very excited. I don't have a copy of it in person either. So I'm excited to like do North and South Node readings with that reading cloth. And it features a drawing that was one of the original card back designs.
Oh, cool.
Back when there was shells in the suit. And I just photoshopped the shell and replaced it with the bottle. But it's like a really beautiful. I've always wanted to use that drawing, so it works gorgeous, perfectly as the reading cloth.
Yeah,
that's
really
been
pretty.
unlocked. That's been unlocked, so that can be added on somewhere along the process for $10. And then the next stretch goal is the miniature travel deck. Which I was heavily encouraged to make by a lot of people because they want smaller versions of the deck to take with them. So I designed a smaller version with that same card back that's on the one time only. It will only be available in the Kickstarter and never again. So it has its exclusive little card back. So once we reach, I think it's 25,000, that will be unlocked, but I'm thinking of bringing it to 20 because I really want that to be made. So I might drop it.
Yeah.
We're funded, so everything everything from this top is extra decks to make. So it would be cool if people were able to get that travel deck. So I might. I'm thinking about bumping it down to 20. So I'll say it this way: for $20,000.
Yeah, because maybe you will have by the time this comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So if you 20 for 20,000, once we reach 20,000, that will be unlocked, and the price will be at most for that $30. And if more people order that, the price of that will go down. Actually.
Oh, very cool. I mean, it seems like just in the few like card of the day lives that you've done, and you talk about the mini deck, like people seem to lose their minds for that shit. So
it's so weird.
I mean, it's cute, but like, yeah.
I have a mini deck I carry in my purse. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Yeah. I mean, it's mini decks. I carry the big deck with me everywhere, and I just use it everywhere. So that's just like the way I do it, because I like roll up and I'm like, here are these big old cards. I don't think mini decks. I actually don't. Yeah, I have a lot of smaller decks, but I kind of like the Alice in Wonderland tarot. I kind of wish I had the bigger version of it.
Right.
I have the small one, and it's just like I really love to jump into the cards and get lost in the imagery. So the bigger the better. If I could get like 10-inch cards, I would.
Just some big card energy, eh?
Just fill the whole table with the cards. Just
one card covers a room. Life-size tarot cards. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool idea. That would be fun.
It is.
That is what Rachel Pollack does when she does a workshop. She has made a huge version of her deck, which is like this, like a gigantic size.
So cool.
And she'll hold it up and she'll be like, this is, and it's like, it's hilarious.
I mean, that's a great teaching tool. Yeah. Makes sense.
You can get the big version of the Rider-Waite online, actually.
How big?
What? Oh, no.
Like that big.
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
Yes.
My bank account is
Jacanovia's out.
It's like $25. It's really cheap.
Oh.
You should look.
Oh, no.
Like on Amazon, I think. I don't know where they have it, but
we're just going to hear clicking and typing and like.
The version of Rider-Waite that I never got that I miss, and I was like, oh, damn it. It just was like a glow in the dark version.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. I was like, I had it. I was like going to buy it, and then I didn't buy it. And maybe they make it again, but then it just went out of print. And I was like, oh, glow in the dark version with big cards. I was like, that would be so cool to do like black light readings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be really fun.
Super cool.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, I mean, I know you've got to wrap up with the Kickstarter. I mean, that's not even, the campaign's not done. You've got to deal with all the shipping and all of that kind of stuff. But like, what's next for you after this? Do you have anything that you're ready to jump into? Or are you just going to like, let this project live for a bit? And
well, next week I'm editing a music video, an opera video for Sasha Velour, a drag queen,
yeah,
performance artist in New York. So I'm really excited about that. And then I mean, no, I don't know. I have a lot of ideas for another deck, and the most predominant one is to recreate a deck based on a different system that is by this French occult astrologer from 1909 named Eudes Picard.
Okay.
And he made his entirely own system of the tarot at the same exact moment, same year as Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith were working. And Arthur Waite hated Eudes Picard, and but that system strangely became a predominant system in Spain. It's considered the system is in the Spanish school of the tarot. So I'm considering to remake that deck.
Okay, interesting. So more decks are in your future then, basically.
Oh yeah, I mean, if this deck wasn't successful, probably I wouldn't. But it seems successful. So yeah, I think I want to do that. I want to do an Italian Sibylla deck. So I definitely have like a few systems I want to play with, and different systems, like move outside of the Hermetic Kabbalah and play with other stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to meet more artists. I want to like make more connection with these guys, with more tarot creators, and
so more community.
Yeah, awesome. This is an incredible community. I have to actually say that,
we've been lucky enough to meet a lot of great people, and Jackanovia and I met kind of through Instagram. I mean, we definitely met online, so yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys were like old friends. That's incredible.
That's what it feels like.
And so this is Jackanovia. I'm so happy this is like my first real meeting with you and interaction, aside from the couple little chats that we've had. This is a nice introduction to you.
Oh, she just has written that she can't hear your audio, but I'm sure she would have loved. Jackanovia, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I didn't want to say anything because I could see Bobby talking, and I was like, I don't want to like interrupt.
Yeah, well, he just said the most lovely things about you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had a feeling, something told me that I was like, I should be involved in this in some way.
She wasn't responding. It was like, oh, what was she thinking? I was like, well, I'm thinking in my head, like, was she thinking like, what?
So I will let Bobby repeat that after we finish recording. We'll stop recording over here and we can unmute over on Skype or something so that you can hear that. But for now, I'll just wrap things up. So Bobby, thank you so much for being on the show, for taking the time to be here and sharing all of this with us. It's been really amazing. Like, this has been such a fun conversation. We're going to put in the show notes, like the Kickstarter link and where people can find you on Instagram. But besides Outsider Tarot, like, did you want to shout out any of your other Instagram accounts? I know you've got a couple, or at least one, like the filmmaker one.
Oh, yeah, it's just Bobby Abate art, and my website is sweetkitty.com, so anyone can look at that stuff.
So, so we'll have all that in the show notes. But again, thank you so much for being here. It's been really great. And
thank you.
Listeners, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Tarot Coven Cast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll be revisiting a topic from Season 1, Symbols in the Tarot Cards. And until then, everyone, keep making magic.